My name is Robin Green. I'm Director of Core Engineering at Vena. Core Engineering is the part of the development organization that owns the parts of the product that customers don't even know exist. So the server code, the underlying database engine, the UI design system, things like that. Been with Vena for 9 years, and my favorite travel destination is India, and I've been to India 3 times in the last year, because we recently, about February of last year, we started partnering with a company in the city of Indore in Madhya Pradesh in India, in the middle of India, and we eventually bought them and turned them into our new Vena India subsidiary. So I visit there frequently, and I love the people. I find them super friendly. The weather is wonderful. There's tons of culture there, and the food is amazing. My favorite dish is eggplant. If you ever invite me over, please serve eggplant. And the only thing I don't like about India is the traffic. It is absolutely crazy, and if you want to cross a street, you're basically risking your own life. But I eventually got good at that. So today we're going to talk about migrating a software as a service product, so a SaaS-based product, from one cloud provider to another. So for some context, Vena Solutions is a company that builds budgeting planning software, or we also call it financial planning and analysis software. So typically the office of finance of a company of 50 to 5,000 people will look after doing kind of the budgets for the organization. They'll take input from different departments, and they'll figure out how much we're allowed to spend based on how much money we have and how much we think is going to come in. And that is a collaborative process that typically involves the finance team as well as managers of different departments who have to input data and review reports for their department and so on. So we have this product that is Excel-based. Part of the code is running inside Excel, and in turn it is connecting to services running in the cloud that store the data and manipulate the data and do transformations and computations and produce reports and so on. So we were initially a hosted product, so you basically installed our software on your servers, and then after about 4 or 5 years we moved to cloud. We moved to AWS because at the time that was really the only thing there was. It was the only credible, commercially viable cloud provider about 10 years ago. And about 5 years ago, we said, maybe we should try moving to Azure because we're running Excel. So we put together a group to think about moving to Azure, and after about 3 months of a lot of infrastructure people feeling really disgruntled, we gave up. We said, we can never do this. It's just not doable. And then about a year and a half ago, we started partnering more aggressively with Microsoft, and Azure had really evolved by that point, and our organization had also evolved. And we got what's called kind of a unicorn partnership with Microsoft, where they identified us as a very promising prospect to partner with. And so we agreed to proceed. And so I think it was around October or November of 2023, we kind of committed to trying to have what we called a minimum viable hub, or minimum viable version of our product running on, at least partially on Microsoft. And then very quickly after that, we decided to commit about 40 people. So basically the entire organization of technical operations, which is Core Eng, the department I lead, SaaS technology and operations, which is the department Pavan, who's speaking, and he's one of the leaders there. So yeah, about 40 of us working heads down for, I think about 3 months to get the minimum viable product working, and then another 6 months to get a fully working product out that we could prove worked, and then another 4 months to kind of harden it and make it ready for customers. And so within a little more than a year of when we started, what we originally 5 years ago thought was an impossible venture, we had a fully functioning product running on Azure, and we now have, I think last I checked about a week ago, we had our first 5 or 6 customers on Azure, and every new customer from now on is going on Azure. So there's a lot of benefits to Vena for doing this, and there's also benefits to customers being on Azure because it means that all of their stack is now running on Microsoft, and there's actually some financial incentives Microsoft provides to make it viable. So But you guys are more interested in the technical side of it, so I'm just going to talk briefly about our three speakers and try to do them in the right order. So who's first? Okay, so Saeed is first. So Saeed is a very interesting fellow. If you want to know about dire wolves or you want to know about botany, he's a great person to talk to. He's also done, he's taught at a university, and when I hired him in, I guess it was about 3-4 years ago, he joined as a tech lead for the Cube team. He knew nothing about OLAP Cube, and now he knows more about OLAP Cube than absolutely anyone I've ever met. And so he's going to talk about kind of some aspects of the work that teams that he leads were involved in the transition. And so he leads the Cube team directly, and then he also leads a team in India indirectly that's working on staging, which is how we pull massive amounts of data into Vena, transform it, and then put it into the Cube. After that, it's Lucas. So Lucas is a developer on the MT server team. MT stands for multi-tenant because we used to be on-premise, so we were single-tenant. When we moved to cloud, we became multi-tenant, and we still call it that even though there's no alternative now. It's all MT. And so he works on a team that was responsible for kind of removing cloud-specific code from MT Server and making it more cloud-agnostic, so building out services that could be worked whether you're on Azure or on AWS, so that was a really interesting challenge. And then Pavan leads the platform tooling team, and he's got his cheerleaders are here cheering him on. And so his team is responsible for a lot of the DevOps, the deployment pipelines, and he can also talk a little bit about kind of the challenges of moving from a situation where to deploy a new data center or hub, as we call them, requires like infrastructure developers to spend weeks and weeks of work to the point where we can enter some configuration information and push a button and we've got a new hub up and running and we can put customers on it. So there's our three speakers. They'll each speak for somewhere around 10 minutes, and if we have time afterwards and people have questions, we'll be happy to answer them. So Saeed, why don't you come on up?
Good evening. Thank you, Robin, for the introduction. I'll try to live up to what you hyped me up to be. Today I'm going to try to talk to you about planning. Why did I pick planning of all the topics? Because one of the things that I keep hearing all the time is, you're doing agile, why are you doing planning? Many times I've heard that you can't go together, right? And I'm old enough where that sentence, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail, was what we grew up on. Then Agile came in and people thought we're throwing all that away, right? Even though from the Agile manifesto, it says responding to change over following project plan. That means there is a project plan, right? And I'm here to try to dispel this notion in case you later on in your career start planning and people say, if you're Agile, you don't plan. We do plan. I'm gonna talk a little bit about a project that is not nearly as exciting as VHOA, which is a theoretical trip from Toronto to Vancouver, a road trip by car, with a car that's limited to 100 km an hour, so nobody thinks of driving 150. Can I have a quick show of hand? How many people think we can do it in 7 days, that trip? Okay, 5 days. Okay, 4? That's a question. That's a good question. How many people think we can do it in 3 days? Not many. 2? All right. There's quite a few people who didn't say anything. I'll get back to why I asked this question a little bit later. So let's start with what is planning, right? What do we usually understand by planning? I picked the third day on a trip that ChatGPT helped me develop because I wasn't going to spend the whole time planning it anymore. ChatGPT can do such a great thing. And this is something that we used to do in planning, right? Take a look at that day. We depart from Thunder Bay at 7, and it's planned all the way to which restaurant there is, what time we're getting there, what time we're staying till, what time we're leaving. So if one of us sleeps in Thunder Bay and doesn't get up in time, and we don't leave till 9, then this whole plan is gone, right? And that's what we don't like. That's not very agile, that's very strict. And that's what we say, that's not what we do anymore, right? That's not a good plan for agile development. This is a much better plan, right? Take a look. We're leaving in the morning from Thunder Bay. We might stop for lunch and take a look at the lake. And we're gonna continue to Winnipeg, arrive in the evening, and we're gonna stay at night in Winnipeg. That's much more flexible. I didn't decide when I'm leaving Thunder Bay. We can still stay till noon and still leave, right? So that's much more flexible. Now, that's not a very restrictive plan. That's a little bit more agile. And we can even go, this is a whole plan of the trip, right? I have total driving time, the duration, what's the plan. I even managed to put the costs here. I didn't put it on the other ones because they were like 5 pages of Word. So there's no way I can display them for you. That's how big the other plans were. Look at this one, that's the whole plan. And you're gonna take a look and say, that's not much of a plan, Saeed, what are you doing? That doesn't do much, but take a look at it and now try to answer the question I just asked you. Can you do it in 7 days? Well, you already know the duration, it's 55 hours. Yeah, it's feasible, right? And as I started going down, Robin asked, do you wanna sleep, right? So if my boss comes to me and says, can you do it in 3 days? Theoretically, yes. 2.5 days is all we need, 60 hours, we'll be there. But what does that mean? That means we're sleeping in the car, we're living in the car. So now I cannot take my old trusted Ford with me. I need a brand new car that can seat at least 3 drivers, with 2 of them being able to sleep. So I'm gonna go to my boss, if you give me a nice brand new RV, I'll get you there in 2.5 to 3 days. But if you're gonna ask me to drive a normal car with only 1 or 2 of us driving, then I'm gonna need 7 days. So that's already planning. And this is what we did for VHOA in the first, is we decided, can we get it done by October 31st? This is the kind of plan we needed, right? We didn't need to know the details of it. So why not just use this kind of plan, right? Why do we need to go a bit further? I have a friend in Winnipeg. I wanna meet them up, right, since we're going that way. Based on this plan, when are we getting to Winnipeg? I don't even know if I'm getting to Winnipeg, right? I can't tell them when I'm getting to Winnipeg. Even if I'm leaving Toronto on Sunday, I have no idea when I get to Winnipeg. But with this kind of plan, I've already broken it to 3 days. I know on Tuesday evening I will be in Winnipeg, right? But I can't tell them when I will meet them. Going back to the original plan, I can call them now and say, if you don't hear back from me, right? Then we're gonna be meeting at the Forks Market in Winnipeg at 6:30 at night. If you don't hear back from me, that's when we're meeting up, right? With this plan, I'm gonna say to them, I'm gonna be there on Tuesday evening. I'll talk to you when I get closer. I'll call you from Thunder Bay when I get there. I'll call you when I'm about a couple hours away from Winnipeg. And then I'll let you know when I'm in Winnipeg. Then we'll decide on a restaurant. So, what is that compared to VHOA? As I said, we started with this, right? And then we moved on. And believe it or not, even in the most agile, you're gonna move from this, to this, and even to this. When we get to the sprint, and we're writing tickets, and we're executing tickets, we're doing this, right? But when do we do it? We do it on Monday night, before I leave Thunder Bay, or I'll do it on Tuesday morning, before I leave Thunder Bay. Right? Either when I get to Thunder Bay or before I leave. So we postponed it. We moved it closer to the date because then I need a reservation, right? What if I don't make it, I make it to Winnipeg and all the hotels are booked. There's nowhere to sleep. We can't have that. So eventually we're gonna get to this level, except we postpone it in agile planning. We move from more general to less general and to more specific. So in VHOA, we did the same thing. But since we did not have all the plans, when we needed SDO to develop the Azure plan for us, to put a database, an Azure SQL database for us to go play around with and test it and see if it fits our needs, That's me telling my friend in Winnipeg, I need to see you, or them calling me and saying, when you're in Winnipeg, come and meet us. So STO needed to know when are we gonna need that database, what database we're gonna need, but we also needed them to tell us when can we start planning to use that database. And that's just 2 teams. STO had many customers from Vena, many teams asking it what to do. We had many teams we depended on. So we had to over-communicate. Okay, I'll try to rush as much as I can. So we had to over-communicate. Why? Because I could not tell them, like my friend, I'll meet you at 6:30 if you don't hear from me. Because I gave them a general plan in the beginning. So we started firming up the plans. We were meeting weekly, and the meeting was mainly about dependencies. I need you to do this, I need you to do that. Every team telling the other team what they need from them, when do they need it by, right? And as we got closer to the date, we were meeting daily to highlight the dependencies and how we're getting closer. So because the general plan, we had to over-communicate, we had to highlight dependencies. On a more specific, the data engineering team, the one that Robin was talking about that does the staging, how did we do, this is now we're going down to a team level. What we did is, first of all, we classified the features. What do we need? What can we live with? All the way down to, it would be nice to have that, but it doesn't need to be done. So we split the work, we defined that work. We split the work into separate technical tracks. So we had parallel tracks going, like that if one of the tracks slowed down, because infrastructure needed to provision something that they haven't had a chance to yet, other plans can keep going. Other tracks can keep going. We don't stop. There is always forward progress being done. Revisiting assumptions. We had made some decisions before we started the project. We had to go back to them. I'm jumping over a lot of things because I'm being told already over time almost. So we had to revisit a lot of assumptions. We had to come back and adjust our plans. And this is what the agile part is, right? It's not having a plan. It's coming back to it and deciding to change it. I promised my boss's boss that one day I'm gonna make him a thing about the runway. So this is, Brandon, if you see this, this is for you. I never got a chance to do it while doing the project because we're running out of time. And the way we looked at it is we had a runway, right? And we had decisions to be made. And each decision is here represented by an exit, right? And what we did is we postponed those decisions to as late as we can. But we had to have those dates ahead of time. We had to know when do we need to make a decision, which database to use. That was very early. We had to decide early. But whether to use VQL or not, that was something we could postpone a bit. And identifying those and postponing the decision and the planning for each phase to as close to the deadline that we needed for. That's how we planned Agile, and that's how we came back and revisited our assumptions all the time. But it's a plan that got evolved, but it was still Agile. So just wanted, if you hear Agile doesn't do planning, and thank you, that's it, that's all I had. Happy to answer questions now or later. Okay, Lucas?
Pop that one first. Yeah, just like yeah, have the. Should be fine.
Okay, hello. All right, what's up everyone? So like Robin presented earlier, my team, what we worked on was actually getting our object story interface working so it was working on Azure. Yeah, I'm just gonna go, so today I'm gonna take you on a journey of how this was actually done. We're gonna go all the way back to 2023, end of 2023, to see all the planning we did, how we were agile, and from that, hopefully you can learn some things about what this experience is actually gonna be like if you were ever to take on this challenge. So, let's go back in time. Back then, we had 4 things that we were really worried about. We had existing code that was all written in AWS, written for AWS, and we had no idea what Azure was going to give us. No one on my team has ever touched Azure, so for us, this was completely new. Like Robin said, our teams are going to be teams that our customers don't even know we exist. We'll do stuff, but they don't know we exist. Our customers for our teams is other developers at Vena, and because of that, we want to make sure that whatever we come up with will work for the other developers at our team or within Vena. And if there's a feature that requires object storage, it's also going to work not only on AWS, but also on Azure. So, knowing all this, the first step of our plan is to know where we're at. So where are we at back then? If you look at the slides, it's pretty bad, and it was. We had problems related to out-of-memory issues. This was because Vena wrote this code way back in the day when we were just getting on AWS. We didn't have a lot of customers, so this code was for optimizing Vena back then. But these days, it causes us problems. And we really had to fix this before we moved on to Azure. Because it was so old, there was technical debt, there was complex usages, so even though we had the right idea of an architecture there, where there is this interface that consumers should call and use, but then we have an implementation for AWS. Because there was only one, what ended up happening was in the code, everyone just started using that one implementation instead of the interface. So we couldn't easily just say, we're going to implement this in Azure, and everyone and the interface will follow along. There was also some custom code that we added at some point for virus scanning, file keys, and what else was it? Did they say virus scanning? Did they say that? Yeah, I said that. Okay.
Encryption.
Encryption, yes. Thanks, Robin. Yeah, so we had custom code there. So knowing all this, we had to get all of that onto Azure. Plus, because it was written so for AWS, we need to now figure out, will this architecture still work for Azure? So let's look at Azure and AWS, specifically S3 and blob storage, which is their offering for object storage. So, okay, they look the same, right? We have the accounts, which is how we're going to connect the APIs to them. Then we have the stuff that holds the objects that we can access, and then the objects themselves. Nice, looks the same. Maybe we can do this. Maybe it'll be easy and we just have to fix up all the errors. But then we look at the differences and we find out there's one big assumption that our architecture made, and this was that one account can access all buckets in any region. So, but in Azure, we can't really do that. In Azure, we figured out that what happens is to connect to different regions, we're going to connect to different storage accounts. And so our architecture is not going to work here. So we have a lot of bad code, we have outdated stuff, and it's not going to work. So what we're going to do, we're just going to rewrite all of it. Throw everything out the window and just rewrite it all, make it better for everybody. So we have a product, we have our end goal, we know we're starting. So now how do we get there? Let's start building it. So this is our plan. We're going to work on the architecture, make it work for AWS, then make it work for Azure, and then once we have that solution, we give it to our developers to use. Starting with the architecture, we started being like, okay, we need AWS, we need Azure. That's how we started off. But like anyone, if any developers here have actually started working with stuff, you don't really know it until you start working on it. So being agile, even though we did have this plan of architecture, code, give it out, we had to revisit the architecture and the code continuously, being agile and going back and fixing stuff as they came. So once we had that down, coding for AWS was pretty simple. We already knew what AWS provided, so all we had to do was fix up the errors. So that was great. We fixed up the errors in AWS, and now onto Azure, even better, because for us at the time, what happened was Copilot came out. And what we did was we actually got Copilot to say, hey, look at this AWS code we did with no bugs anymore. Please write it in Azure for us. And then it just did it. It did it okay. It did it just enough. because we found out, this was another thing that we learned, was that once you write something with Copilot, it doesn't always give you the right thing. So what ended up happening was it wrote it more similar to how AWS defines like their SDK and how it works. So we had to go back in and fix that. But like Said said, gotta be agile, so we just kept going, fixing it up. And now we got into the hands of our developers. In the hands of our developers, we actually did one extra thing that really helped with the process, which was that we gave our developers a feature flag. So what we did was we gave them a feature flag. So if the feature flag is on, we'll use this new thing. If not, we'll use the old thing. That guaranteed that when we roll out, we don't break the stuff. Or if we do break stuff, it'll be kept to minimal amount of damage. And so that's what we did. We turned on the feature flag for maybe like 1 or 2 customers for our test stuff or test tenants. And we just kept repeating this cycle over and over and over again until we got it working for all our customers. And now knowing that this works and our new thing works and it's bug-free, we can safely say that when we move on to Azure, which we are now on Azure with, Robin said, 1 to 5 customers, 5 customers, we know that this thing works and we can feel assured that what we did is going to continue working for the near future. And speaking of the near future, what's next for us? One step I didn't mention was we didn't delete any of the code yet. So hopefully sometime soon, we will get to delete this code. And for everyone else here, I want to thank you. And up next is Pawan.
While we're miking up, did you just use assured? Like assured? We got assured. Like that's a nice new word. We assured. All right. Hi everyone, thanks for coming out today, and I'll be talking about developer experience in a multi-cloud environment. I do want to set a little bit of context for my team. We're called the SaaS Technology and Operations Tooling Team. So we shorten it to STO. You can think of it as a typical like infrastructure team, or some people call it like a platform team. The way like Vena Hub on Azure, the VHOA, we use tons of acronyms. We're like indoctrinated with the Microsoft ecosystem, so we just shorten everything. So with VHOA, when we first looked at the project, from a developer experience lens, we kind of reevaluated how are we building software today at Vena. And you know, with any new project, when you think about whether how large or big migrations, there's an opportunity here, right? There's an opportunity to do something better, learn from your previous mistakes, evaluate your current landscape, see if you need to make better, different decisions. So that's kind of what we were doing at the time anyways. And one of the things that we did early on within the team is we came up with some key principles from an enablement perspective that we should be following. Our very first principle, I'm not going to go through all of them, but only the 3 that kind of relate to this project. So our obsession towards reducing complexity. And you know, the way we define complexity, you can look at it from different lenses, right? So one of it is, I want to add this new feature. How many different files or services do I need to touch to update this, to get this feature live? Right? The other is around, you have this new thing you're doing, and you build a snowflake solution, which is like, and that adds complexity. So snowflake solution, like you have multiple ways of doing the same thing, right? And they don't align with each other really well. And in our case, we're adding a full-blown new cloud, right? We have AWS, now we have Azure. We're multiplying our complexity for everything by 2. The other thing that Vena does, our infrastructure is, we call them hubs or data centers, but we use a we use infrastructure sharding for the shared tenancy model. So anytime a customer is added, let's say we put it on one hub, now we're saying, oh, this hub is full, let's just spin up a brand new hub, put the new customers there. So we shard our entire infrastructure. So we also have this complexity of, we might have hundreds of data centers in the future depending on how many customers we have. So there's added complexity with deployments when you're thinking about deploying to all these different hubs in the future. The next principle was automation, which kind of solves some of our complexity around managing all the different things. Like I think automation is something we're seeing the benefits of in every aspect of technology. Build tools were like, when you run Maven or whatever, it's a style of automation. CI/CDs are like a very common tool for automation. So they've been around for a while, but really leaning into what else do we need to automate? Can we get to a point where you want a new hub, you click a button, and it just spins up the entire infrastructure? How do we get to that point? What are all the things do we need? So again, it's an opportunity as we build our Azure hub. How do we build more automation into it, which we couldn't do when AWS was around? And then within that, there's the self-serve approach. Like, do we need a ticket to be opened with our team every time that a developer wants to spin up a new code base, new pipeline, whatever they want to do? Can it be self-serve? Can we train them so that they can manage this on their own? I like to think of it as like lazy and smart. Like that's how we want to approach our solutions. And then finally, the last principle is extend versus build, buy versus build. So can our current tooling solve this problem? Do we really, if we can add it to what we have, it keeps the current developer flow the same. They have an extra layer of visibility for the same things. I'm keeping it pretty generic because extend is like one of the hardest decisions that teams don't make in platform teams. So we end up thinking about buying because if you buy, there's several SaaS tooling out there that you can leverage, and then your last call should be to build. I cannot find the solution. I'm going to build it. I'm going to maintain it. I'm going to patch every single version dependency that I've built into this. So there's a lot of cost in building something. So we look at these principles, and the way we kind of apply them is the very first thing, which Lucas well pointed out, is like we all had to learn Azure, right? So we have, for example, EC2 instances in AWS. There are VMs in Azure. We have ASGs, which are auto-scaling groups. We have VM scale sets in Azure. And we have like the ECR. I have only remembered the short terms for them. And we have ACR on Azure. So there's all these equivalent things available, but they don't work exactly the same. There are a lot of nuances that we had to go through. So learning Azure was like a big step within our team to realize like what are the differences, where do we need to abstract away complexity. The next step was like we took another look at our tooling. So we looked at, we self-host Jenkins right now, and we said the amount of time we spend patching, maintaining Jenkins, installing plugins, building custom tools on top of it to enable certain functionality, how do we get rid of this? And we looked at Azure DevOps, which we call ADO, or Azure Pipelines. It's a managed service from Microsoft. Works very similar to GitHub Actions. It's actually built on the same architecture. The difference is it's built for enterprise software and enterprise companies like us. So we picked that as our tool, and we said, okay, we want to do this migration. We have Azure going on, the Azure cloud migration going on at the same time. So how do we also layer in this idea of automation and self-serve? So you can see there's like several different outcomes that we are driving towards during this opportunity. So we switched our internal model of behavior from this centralized CI/CD team that is going to build everyone's pipeline, maintain it, maintain the Jenkins software, to a more shared model. And there's two layers of technology that enable this for us. So Jenkins has it's called Jenkins Template Engine, which lets you abstract out reusable code. And then on the Azure pipeline side, you have the Azure templates, which work exactly the same. So we built all these reusable methods, and we said, okay, for a pipeline, you want to run unit tests, you want to upload to S3, you want to upload here, you want to run your integration tests. Here are the standard methods you can call on your pipeline, and it will do it for you. So you can see we've severely simplified our pipelines, and we have a standard way of doing our deployments now. But there's another layer to self-serve in this decision. So the next layer, like as we implemented these abstractions, we had this tendency, like, we can go in and do this work ourselves. It's very easy. We can just go in and build these pipelines. Will be done in one sprint. But the opportunity we would lose out on is enabling our teams to do this in the future when they want to build new services. They need to learn these methods. They need to get used to understanding how they work under the hood, not to be experts, but know they're available, and start leveraging them when they have new services being spun up. So that is where we kind of looked at our product team's roadmaps. We acquired alignment with them and said, we will give you workshops and training, we will train you on Azure, show you what the underlying technology is, and you're going to do this change, this migration on your own. Here, and at that point, there was a little bit of hesitation because it's a complete culture shift that we were driving towards. Teams being worried about, I don't know CI/CD, I don't know cloud infrastructure, how am I going to be able to achieve this? But it's that confidence in leading this change through the teams, the abstractions that we built, the training material that we built, the hand-holding that we were giving, gave more confidence in getting that alignment. So we did all that. And leading up to this, 6 months has passed. Like, it's a very, there's 4 dots on the screen, but this is 6 months of work leading up to the final 1 month, which is this box right here. And what we noticed that after the training, the getting used to the new pipelines, teams were able to integrate their Azure deployments very easily. And we all the tooling team did was support that migration. There were some use cases that were missing from our core abstractions. One of them is in ECS, you're able to, or in AWS for Elastic Container Services, you're able to run a pre-task before your container deploys. But on the other hand, in Azure, they call it like an init step. And the way it behaves is like you have a time limit in which you have to finish the init step. So you have to have like a long-running init step to achieve the same thing. And that was a use case where we had to be agile, create that abstraction, make it available, and the team can use it. Now, there is like an underlying layer to all of this. The principle that we haven't talked about is we make this assumption about portability, using Docker containers as something that is everybody does now. But our core code base, our monolith, was not Dockerized about 2 years ago. And we did a portability effort to make local development easier, which actually made it much easier to deploy our core infrastructure over to Azure as well. So there are a lot of underlying decisions, like how your code, your team is organized, that impacts productivity. But if you think about those principles, making things more self-serve, abstracted, standardized, reducing complexity, like you can achieve like a migration or multi-cloud solution that is easy to maintain. yeah, and that's my talk. Thank you.
Yeah, I think if we can get the 3 speakers up, and then we'll do like a joint Q&A.
Any questions?
Can you hear me? Okay. All right, questions? Okay.
Hi, I'm just curious in terms of the infrastructure that you did, right? From your understanding, it's from AWS, and then you wanted some clients to be on Azure. I just want to understand, why didn't you use something like Terraform to do something like an infrastructure as a code, so it's easier to switch between 2 different providers?
Yeah, so I didn't get into the details of the technology, but we leverage Ansible and Terraform quite heavily for all our infrastructure management. One of the early decisions was that, so you have to think about when Vena went to AWS. We wrote our own version of Ansible because it didn't exist. So we maintain that today. That's again a build decision we made because we couldn't buy. Right now we have Ansible available for Azure. It's actually given us a really nice pattern for if we want to improve our AWS deploys, we can just apply it to AWS, and yeah, like those are great tools to standardize and use for automation for deployments. So we leverage them for Azure.
Thank you.
There is also another aspect to the challenge as well, right? It's not just about Terraform. We were tied to AWS, for example, using Redshift, right? You don't have Redshift or any equivalent for it on Azure, so we had to do research on using something else. We ended up, for one case, using ASD, which is Azure SQL Database. For another one, we're using Azure Data Explorer, right? And that requires a change of thinking sometimes. So it's not just the infrastructure being there, it's we were tied to the actual architecture of AWS as well.
Any other questions?
Hey, so you said that at some point you could have built out the solution, but you decided you wanted the teams to have some exposure to that, to get some experience with it. How much time did that add to the plan, and how did you go about evaluating how much time to give them and the trade-off and the benefit to Vena?
Yeah, that's a really good call. So, you know, some of these strategic decisions, the value isn't immediately seen. We had a very tight deadline, right? So, tooling is a very small team. We're a team of 5, supporting 150-ish developers. So, if we had to do this work on our own, it would have taken us a month for the entire team to be dedicated to this. So there's that aspect if we did it on our own, right? And I'm not even calculating the enablement, the gains in this. So when we looked at the training material that was needed, one of the decisions that we made early on, we went to all the teams, all the developers. You have to do the AZ204 certification, which gives you a good baseline for understanding what's available in Azure. So knowing everybody had gone through that, the real training that we had to do was around Azure pipelines. And we kept it very simple. We did 3 hours of learning sessions, created tickets for them, scoped everything out, like, you know, handheld to the max, and it took them 2 weeks to finish. So we actually still finished it within that 1-minute window, and our team was free to do all the other work that we also had to do. So that was kind of the evaluation plan, but you know, as we were moving toward the shared model, this was a cost that we were willing to pay, and I think it has paid off pretty well.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Because Azure has been giving so many kickbacks to enterprise customers, are you going to keep the AWS pipeline ongoing in case costs are too high with Azure?
Yeah, so we do have a service, minimum service. It's called a MAC. I'm trying to remember.
Microsoft,
Like,
Azure consumption commitment.
yeah, consumption commitment, right. We do have that. We're actually moving our Jenkins workers to become Azure pipeline agents, and we're going to move them to Azure to get some of those discount benefits. Yeah, I think that's more of like a optimization, cost optimization decision, and we have a stronger partnership with Microsoft, and it makes total sense to move all our infrastructure over. But as Robin also pointed out, for our customers, they also sign a minimum spend agreement with Microsoft when they buy Office 365, and they can use that budget towards buying Vena software. So anytime they buy us on Azure platform, they can subtract that from their commitment. Sorry? The AWS pipelines, no. We're gonna move our, so it's a tricky question because it gets into like deep network security. Our AWS networking and our Azure networking are quite separated. So we do need some Azure agents within the AWS infrastructure to be able to do those deployments, run Ansible, those permissions. So we will have to keep them because the hubs are there. But as much as we can, we're going to move away into and moving those workers and agents into Azure. But the control plane is going to be fully Azure pipelines. We're going to shut down Jenkins, have this managed service, so that is our end goal. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Other questions?
You highlighted a few times that even though you did agile, you needed a plan, and it seems like there were some tension, expectation from someone that you didn't need a plan. Could you please share, like, who was the one who didn't think that you needed a plan?
I'm not gonna get anybody into trouble, but you encounter that with people who either are new to Agile, believe it or not, right, or who take on Agile, trying to be careful with my words so I don't offend too many people, take it on as a religion almost, right, where they don't even, like, I quoted from the Agile Manifesto. I made sure that I don't quote an Agile expert, right, or a book on Agile or anything like that. I went to the manifesto itself, and it says there is a project plan. But there are people who are so into the Agile that we don't need to anything that commit us. And usually it's a developer that's new, or somebody who is new into project management, and it's their first planning for, or first couple plans for Agile. And usually moving from a small project to a bigger one, right? Because I gave you a plan for my trip, theoretical trip, driving to Vancouver. I did not need anything like that for driving here today, right? Like when I got up to drive here today, I didn't do that. For a small plan, for small projects, planning can be minimal or non-existent. And usually that's where you get the resistance, is when somebody moving from small project to a bigger project, and it's their first time, and they think we can move that mentality with us, because Agile said no planning. So that's usually who I get it from. It's new people to planning or new people to Agile, and they're used to smaller projects.
Yeah, I think there's a balancing game, right? Like you can go to the traditional waterfall model or go full no planning, and I think that's the point here, is to be in the middle. But nobody, I think at Vena was really saying like don't plan or over plan. Yeah, but it's more like I think the industry, we've adopted Agile, Scrum, but that doesn't mean that you don't plan. I think being in the gray area, like we have several rituals at different stages, like yearly plans, quarterly plans, horizon, and then the sprint planning, right? So and you're adjusting at each point. Your sprint is giving you a better view. You gotta change your horizon. You need to change your quarterly plans. Like, so you have like a top-down and bottom-up approach to be flexible, but you still need a plan at the end.
Other questions? Yep.
Looking back at the challenge that it was for migrating from AWS to Azure, is there an advice that you could give us when starting building an infrastructure?
Advice? Sorry, I missed the last part. I missed the last part, so could you just...
Building a new SaaS application?
Yes, if I were to start.
If you were to start building a new SaaS application, what would I advise you in case you want to try to make it multi-cloud? My advice would be twofold, actually. That came from like postmortem we did for our team. One of them is don't use cloud-specific technology where you can. So instead of using Kinesis or Event Hub, use something like Kafka. It's a lot harder, but if you're planning to move, that will make your life a lot easier. Yeah. The other one is Dockerize, right? Put things into Docker containers if you can. From the beginning, build it to be Dockerized. Or any technology, you don't want to use Docker. This is not to endorse Docker. I think it's the best containerizer for now. I don't think it has a competitor, but any containerization you want to use, go for it, because it allows you to move things so easily, right? So those would be my two advices. I don't know if you've encountered anything else.
Don't do it.
Don't build a SaaS application.
One thing I'll say don't do, and this is something that it came out from something similar to what Lucas's team faced. Do not over abstract, right? This is something that I probably would say to you. Do not build everything behind huge, humongous interfaces. I'm somebody who loves interfaces a lot, and when I used to write C#, ASP.NET, I would have 6 projects in the application. 3 of them are interface projects, 3 of them are implementation projects. So I love interfaces, but for applications this big, do not abstract too much. We had, in audit, for Cube Audit, we had a writer that writes to Kinesis. It was not hidden behind an interface. It was a straight application, audit writer dot audit this intersection. It's not a big class. So interfacing it there would meant that every time I maintained that class, I would have had to maintain the interface, and I had to do all of that. And if we didn't move clouds, that would have been for nothing. Interfaces have their place. Please do not understand that I'm saying interfaces suck. Don't. If you're building anything complex, put it behind an interface right away. But if you're not building, when you're getting down to smaller and smaller classes, like something that has 4 or 5 methods that are very simple, Kinesis.write this value, do not abstract too early thinking, I might move clouds one day. We did interface it, but what did it take? Nothing. IntelliJ detected the interface, it made it for us, and we implemented the class. So that was an extra 10 minutes worth of work. What's on a project that's 9 months old? It took 9 months to write, not that much. At the same time, Cube Service has probably hundreds of methods inside it. It is sitting behind an interface. There's no way around that, right? So please don't take my words to the extreme, but do not abstract too early, would be also my suggestion.
I think I have one little thing I want to add that I only discovered recently. It's a little embarrassing, but so I have to share this knowledge. So my team, even though we did build our own abstraction, I found out actually pretty recently that there are libraries out there that already do this for you. We found out that we wouldn't be able to use it anyway, so that worked out. But if you are looking to develop something that is multi-cloud from the start, there are libraries out there that exist that you can actually use it. And I don't want to keep this knowledge hidden, because for me, it took me months until I found it. So yeah, they exist. So try looking for them if that's your goal.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I'll just, yeah, to summarize, it's portability is your best friend. Extend, buy, and then build. Like those principles. They were hard learnings, but I think they set us up for success, really.
But also when you're buying, like when you're buying, don't tie yourself down to a cloud provider if you can.
Yeah, that's the portability.
Excellent. Any other, we'll take one last question. Okay.
For any of you or whatever, what are some, like, throughout the project, what are some, like, small, little, or big, like, proud moments within the entire project or process?
To me, this is something that I like a lot at Vena, and I'm not doing this as a plug. But to me, this it's one of our core values. We call it one team, right? And as the project was coming to an end, different teams had different responsibilities, right? Some teams, like staging, was huge and had a lot. Other teams, like you as well, had a bit more capacity. We finished and we had a bit more capacity. And what happened is we came together and teams started taking loads off other teams, right? So as you're working, you see another team, whether because the technology didn't help or for whatever reason, their roadmap is slipping, their delivery is slipping. We had teams come in and either lend a hand or take on the whole responsibility for that part. It was really a beautiful effort to see that, you know, people bring their own roadmap on the side because somebody else's roadmap for this delivery has an earlier deadline. We need to do that, and the way we came together was something very nice. I enjoyed that. So that was, for me, I don't know.
I guess like what I did with the presentation, I'll give more specifics on what Saeed just said. I think like for me, when like I was one of the people jumping onto other teams' projects, like I think I was pulled into this one thing about networking, and I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but you know what, maybe I'll hop on and try to help. Yeah, that's like one of the specific stuff. So that was really fun. It was like good. I think that was like a week long where I was just like, okay, gotta figure this out, gotta make it work, the deadline's coming up. So that was really cool.
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Any proud moments or any fun moments or?
Oh, fun moments. I got this hoodie after after that project, so that was fun. I think, I think Saeed said it really well. Like, our deadline was 3 days away. Raf, I can't see you, but like, you and I were in a call, like debugging our tests. That was super fun. Going through what's going wrong, finding those problems, sharing it with this channel, where like everyone's jumping. Like, what can I take next? We had 3 syncs per day talking about what else is left. And at the end of the day, the deadline was like a marker, like a milestone. It wasn't urgent, but I think we really held ourselves super accountable, which was really amazing to see. Like, so it felt great working with people who hold themselves accountable and want to hit that date. And I think time management was amazing over the last year. I think I remember just working 3 days late, like when Raf and I were debugging the final like things or running some of the configurations that we'd missed. And that's not bad for a software project this large. Like, a lot of projects run over, and I think internally we were like, how do we get this right? Like, we did a lot of good things, so we all felt proud of that.
Thank you.
I know you said the last question, but I figured there's a question all 3 of us did not answer. We missed at the beginning. So my destination of dream would be Japan right now, just because I love the culture so much and I've never had a chance to go. I've been to India 4 times, enjoyed the hell out of it, like Robin said. It's been beautiful, but yeah, my bucket list would be right now Japan. I've realized we didn't answer those, so.
All right, I'll share mine. So it's a part of Kashmir in India. It's called Ladakh. So I've been to the city of Leh once, and I absolutely love it. So it's on the foothills of the Himalayas. The culture is like Tibetan, but I'm in India. It's a weird, kind of surreal place. I love going there. Yeah, highly recommend it. It's high up. Be careful of altitude sickness. But they do make a moonshine beer called Chang. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I already have my tickets booked for Japan, so yeah. So I'll be going there this year.
Okay. Well, thank you so much to the 3 of you. Give them another big round of applause. That was wonderful. I'm so inspired. This is the first time we've done like a lightning talk format, and I loved how each of your talk kind of went into the other. I don't know if it was pre-rehearsed, but it was.
It was a total coincidence.
It was a okay. Well, that proves how the one team energy is like, it's just there. So thank you so much for that. Okay, and so yeah, thank you again to everyone at Vena. Thank you for this beautiful space. I think the people's team are going to be back there. So if you want to find out a little bit more about this one team energy and the exciting things that they're working on, please go chat with them. I think they have some little goodies to give away as well. So please go check them out. Yeah, we're going to continue to just mingle and chat. So please, and I think the 3 speakers will be happy to answer more questions. So we'll be sticking around for a little bit, and then we're gonna hop on over. Hopefully, it looks like it's not snowing anymore. So we'll head over to Left Field Brewery in a little bit. Enjoy some leftover pizza if there are any. And thank you so much for coming out tonight.